Do you want to know the best ways to use the ClickUp and Slack integration? Well, in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 best ways that you can use the integration to help your team be more productive. In addition, I'm going to walk through the tips and best practices to help make sure that your team doesn't get lost between the 2 tools. Let's get started. All right, so let's jump into ClickUp here. And obviously, we need to start with actually going ahead and setting up the ClickUp and Slack integration, because if it's not set up, then we can't actually use the integration overall. So what we need to do is go to the top right corner of your screen, and you need to go ahead and find the App Center. So that's going to be in the Quick Action menu here, right next to your face here with your personal settings. But go to the Quick Action menu and find the App Center right here. If you can't find it, you can always go ahead and search for it. But click on the App Center just like this, and as you'll see in the featured integrations, we have the Slack integration right here. So if you don't see that, all you need to do is go ahead and search for apps. You can search for Slack just like that, and you'll find it that way. But if it is here, all you need to do is go ahead and click on it just like that. And as you'll see here, again, pretty easy. Just follow the instructions that it gives you on the screen. Connect Slack. We're going to hit the Manage button, and then all we need to do is go ahead and hit Add to Slack. As we'll see now, we just need to make sure it's actually going and connecting to the right Slack workspace there. If you're in multiple Slack places, then just make sure, again, it's connecting to the correct one. As you'll see here, all we need to do is say, hey, we'll ClickUp be able to view this, we'll ClickUp be able to do that, and then we need to go ahead and hit allow. So relatively easy. Again, that's all you need to do to get it set up. And as you'll see here now, we know it's set up based off of these little check marks right there, as well as I can hit remove Slack integration and then add notifications as well. So just make sure that you get that set up before you do anything else, because without that, we're not going to be able to do anything else that I'm going to show you in this video. So before we jump too far ahead, I want to make sure I lay the foundation and talk about really when your team should use Slack and when your team should use ClickUp. Because obviously Slack is your communication tool, and that's probably where your team is communicating most of the time right now. And that's what it's built for overall. You might also have Slack channels opened up to your clients and things like that. But then there's ClickUp, and when should we communicate in ClickUp? And this is oftentimes a question that we get at ZenPilot frequently, like when should we use this versus when should we communicate in that. So overall, in terms of healthy communication habits, you want to make sure, and we always go by this as a foundation, if it's not in ClickUp, it didn't happen. So you want to make sure that ClickUp becomes your single source of truth, especially for any projects or deliverables that you're doing for clients or even internally. Like Slack can be great for company-wide communication, just kind of chatting in there and talking and maybe some announcements. But if it has to do with anything when it comes to a project or deliverable, you need to make sure that that is living inside of ClickUp. If it's not living in ClickUp, you need to make sure it's taken from Slack and pushed into ClickUp, as we'll go over with this integration, which is why the integration is so great. But you need to make sure, and I'll give you an example here again before we jump into the integration overall. But as you'll see, if I come into Dunder Mifflin, so this is one of our clients here that we're doing work for. If you haven't seen my other videos, essentially we have a delivery space where all this client work is going to live. But as you'll see in here, when I'm doing, again, this can be internally, this can be for clients or whoever. If I have a project like this, blog post, whether it's a website project, I want to make sure that I'm getting that communication not in Slack. We want to make sure that the work and communication is happening in the same place so that everyone has the context that they need when they actually go into their work, as well as make sure that nothing gets lost. Because how many times have someone sent a Slack message saying, hey, can you do this? And then if it's not made into a task or it's not in ClickUp, it doesn't actually get done. And then we're like, oh, shoot, we didn't do that. But that's because there's no due date on there. It's not an actual task. And if someone isn't responsible for that right away and they don't go ahead and make it a ClickUp tasks right away, then it's oftentimes that is going to fall through the cracks. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's why I always say, make sure you get all of that into ClickUp. As you can see here, we have this blog post. People are doing work inside of these subtasks, and all of the communication is happening here in this parent task. So again, instead of this happening in Slack and kind of living in a parallel universe to ClickUp, we make sure it's all here. So that way everyone can come to this task. They can see where the project is. They can see all the communication. They can see really everything they need to know when it comes to this project. So again, make sure you get everything in ClickUp. That becomes your single source of truth. You can use Slack for things like maybe pinging someone. You can always take a ClickUp task just like this, copy it, and actually paste it into Slack and say, hey, did you get to this? Can you do this and highly prioritize this today? So that is an option if you want to do that. But again, make sure ClickUp is your single source of truth for your projects, and use Slack for more general company-wide communication that's not tailored to this specific work like this. So I just wanted to lay the foundation there, and make sure you know that, because that's going to help us when we're actually talking about the integration overall, because again, we're going to use this integration to make sure we get stuff into ClickUp and have a good single source of truth overall. So now actually jumping into the integration, let's go over really the first way that you would use it. So I'm going to jump into Slack here and we'll go over this. As you can see here, I have a channel set up called Demo. I am talking to myself in here. I don't usually do that, but for the purpose of this video, I figured it'd be a great way to talk through all of this. But as you can see here, we have a message, hey, at Jeff, can you create a pricing page for the website? So this is oftentimes an example of someone asking someone to do something in Slack, but then it doesn't get done because maybe I say yes, but I don't actually create a ClickUp task, and then I forget all about it. So you don't want to do that. And so for this case, we need to make sure that this becomes a ClickUp task. So either I can take this and I can copy and paste it into ClickUp and create it separately, or I can actually kind of link these two together, this message to it, so that maybe I can reply to this at a future date. But what I can do with the Slack integration here is I can come and actually go to my more actions. So someone asks me this, they ask me to create a pricing page for the website. I can actually go and create a task in ClickUp from this. So the other way to create a task here inside of Slack is to actually use your commands here. So I can do ClickUp new and I can write something and automatically create a task from that message that then goes into ClickUp. But I like to use this one a little bit better because it's a bit more actionable for me. If someone actually leaves me a message just like this, I can go to more actions, go ahead and create a task just like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and choose the location. So as you'll see here, if I know the list of where I'm going to put it in, which I do, I'm going to put it into the marketing list so I can actually search for that if I wanted to and choose it. But I'm going to go into browse to show you what this looks like. So I'm going to click browse, and now essentially I need to choose the space. So I can pull that down, or just say I'm going into growth. This is the space that I want to put it in. As you can see, if I get out of this, we're going to put it in this growth space right there. I then want to choose a folder. This is going to go into the marketing folder, just like that. So as we'll see, it's right there. And then this is actually going to go into the website list. So once we get that, now we can actually go ahead and choose the location that we're putting that task into. Go ahead and click choose. And now we need to fill out all these additional fields. So if you chose the wrong location, as you can see, I can also change the location. But what I need to do is actually go ahead and enter the task name. So we have the description here. The description's already filled out. This is essentially going to link directly back to this task, which is super cool. And then I can add an assignee, due date, priority. As you can see, I can't add any custom fields to this. I can't add any time estimate or anything like that. So oftentimes, and it's really dependent on the actual message of what you're trying to do here. But for this one, the pricing page for the website is probably going to be a larger project than me just kind of doing this in one sitting or just today. It might take a little bit longer. I need to have a whole sort of workflow. I might need to go through some review cycles. So in this case, oftentimes this task name might just be plan out website pricing page to launch, or whatever you want to call that. We'll just do plan out website pricing page. And then I'm going to go ahead and add an assignee, which is myself. I can go ahead and add a due date as well. So let's say we need this done by Monday. And then I can also make this priority high if I want to. So the reason I'm not just doing create website pricing page is because, again, this might take a little bit longer. I want to make sure that I get this task into ClickUp to plan it, but then get all of the subtasks underneath this as well. So what I'm going to do here, and I'll show you what that looks like, I'll go ahead and click create, just like that. As you'll see now, I can link directly. This is linked directly to that ClickUp task. And as we'll see here, if I come to my marketing, to my website list, just like this, we have plan out website pricing page, just like that. So I can click on that. As you'll see now, from @Jeff via Slack message, I links out to the Slack message as well. Hey, Jeff, can you create a pricing page for the website? It's all right there. And again, if I need to add any custom fields, if I need to add a time estimate to this as well, I can make sure all of that is applied. But again, I did plan out website pricing page because I wanted this to not just be my task. Because again, I want to make sure that these are all sort of broken up into subtasks. That way nothing slips through the cracks. Because oftentimes you're not just going to have one task for the pricing page. We're going to have a bunch of different tasks to go through, the drafting the copy, to reviewing the copy, to adding images, to actually then getting it up on the website. So what I can do is either I can take tasks directly underneath this one, and I can actually go ahead and deploy a template. So if I had a template for website pricing page, I could browse the templates, find it, and deploy it directly underneath this. Or I can actually go here and just, again, track time on that one, and then go ahead and deploy a template into this list for that pricing page, just like this. So browse templates, I would go ahead and find my website pricing page or just website page. As you can see, we have that right there. Use the template, name this one pricing page, make sure that's in the correct spot, remap the dates to whenever this should be done, and then go ahead and deploy that process and get everything assigned out. So now the pricing page is planned out and ready to go. And then we could actually take that task and link it back into ClickUp and message them back and say, hey, yes, I can do that. I went ahead and created a process and a workflow for this, and we're all good to go overall. So now your second option when using the Slack integration, and I don't really use this all that often, but if you do go ahead and let's say you take the Slack URL, and I'll just copy it here, or sorry, the ClickUp URL because it's already there. But again, if you go into any task and I copy it just like this, I can then go ahead and let's say I'm messaging myself back again here and say, yes, I created a task here for this. I can actually paste that in just like that. As you'll see, this link is actually going to unfurl for us to go and we can see that task. I can go and view it. As you can see, it's in the location, shows you the status, who it was created by, assignees, due date. All that information is actually shown directly there for whoever needs to see it. So it makes it a little bit easier rather than them having to go directly back into ClickUp. But as you can see, we can have the ability to, again, view the task there, or I can actually go and change the status if I wanted to. I could change assignee, I could change due date. I could add a comment to this as well, which is super helpful. So if I wanted to comment directly from Slack into ClickUp, I could do that rather than having to jump into ClickUp. So there's just some time savers there for us to do that. But overall, this is a great sort of piece of the integration. I don't use it all that often, but it is helpful, especially if you want to leave a comment or something like that, just to say, hey, I saw this, great work, so on and so forth. But again, you can unfurl those links into Slack just like that, so that sort of you can change the assignees, do things like that if you needed to. So now looking at option 3 for us in terms of using the ClickUp and Slack integration is the one probably that we and I personally like the most overall. And this is actually sending notifications directly to Slack from ClickUp. So this can be great, but it also can be very overwhelming. So just be careful with this one, because if we go back into ClickUp here and we actually go to our integration here at the top, we'll go back to App Center, we'll go to Slack, and we'll go to Manage. You have the option to add Slack notifications. So some people love Slack a little too much, and they say, hey, I'm going to not check my ClickUp notifications or my inbox and ClickUp near as much. I'm just going to live in Slack, which I don't recommend. And so they basically want all of their notifications from ClickUp to go into Slack. However, this becomes very overwhelming, especially if you send it to a channel where everyone sees. You can send it to just a private channel where only you're seeing it if you wanted to do that. However, if I go add a notification and let's say I choose growth, let's say websites, we'll go to that same place I was. I can go ahead and select the channel. I could do that demo one for me if I wanted to. And I can go ahead and basically create that notification. But what that's going to do is, like, really every time, as you can see here, I can adjust this, but task created, status change, new comment, new attachment, assignees change, when I mentioned, include private. So that's going to send basically a ton of stuff that goes into that list and send it to my Slack notifications. And I don't necessarily need that. I should be living out of the ClickUp inbox. I should be using the ClickUp inbox all the time with sort of my task view, looking at my work and sort of making, again, ClickUp the place where it's my single source of truth rather than Slack. So I wouldn't recommend that you go, unless you really feel like you need to, adding any notifications like this where it's coming from a certain list or anything like that. Don't set this up for your team because it can be overwhelming. However, the one place that I would recommend you use this is actually for your ClickUp CRM if you have one. So what you can do, and this is how we use it internally, I'll jump back here and we'll talk about this. So my CRM and ClickUp, and I have a video on this that walks through how this is set up. I'll put in the top right corner for you to go watch that. But your CRM is essentially, this is more focused on my delivery team. And so I have this for not necessarily, which you can build it out for sort of new prospects or people that are not quite closed won or customers. But often this is just for my delivery team to have a CRM inside of ClickUp because they're living in this project management tool. So what I can do if I wanted to is I could get a notification sent to Slack in my sales channel if I had that set up, that anytime, basically, if this was essentially anytime a deal went closed won, it was then put in here for us to kind of keep track of as a client. As you can see here, I have status, health score, services, objectives. So essentially what you could do is you could use this. I could either have a onboarding form for new clients to fill out just like this. So welcome aboard, welcome to ClickUp for Agencies Playbook, so on and so forth. They basically fill this out. And then what that does is it creates a task here in this deals list. Or what I could do is have just an intake form for our sales team to fill out. And essentially, anytime that a task then gets created inside of this deals list, that's then going to send a notification to our team in a sales channel within Slack that says, hey, we got a new customer, which is great. You can also do some things with syncing this with HubSpot as well, which I have a video on the HubSpot and ClickUp integration. If you want to watch that, I'll put that in the right hand corner of this video as well. You can go ahead and take a look at that. But as we'll see here, I'll show you what this looks like. Essentially, what this is going to do is this is going to make it so that the whole team knows when a new deal is coming on board and the team can prepare for that overall. So it just kind of helps us show when a deal is closed won. So what I'm going to do to set that up is I can go to my quick action menu right here, go to my app center, go to Slack, back here, manage, and then set up this notification. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to switch this one to CRM. We're going to go into deals just like that. I can make that sure that's set into demo, and then I can change this to basically just when a task is created. I don't need all of the other things. We don't care about private. And then we're going to go ahead and click save. So I'll show you now what this looks like. So if I come back here into my deals list, again, either the client is going to fill out that onboarding form or sales is going to fill out the intake form, which is going to create a task in this list. But for this example, I'm just going to go ahead and create a task right here so you can see what it looks like. But we have Dunder Mifflin. Let's say this is an ABM retainer. Essentially, this task, again, would be created from that intake form. We go ahead and click save. And then if I go back to my Slack channel just like this, we'll see that we have a notification from ClickUp, Dunder Mifflin ABM retainer, who it was created by, as well as sort of where it's living. So it's living in the CRM in the deals list. This is going to tell the whole team, hey, we just got a new deal on board. Congrats, sales team. Now we have a new customer that we need to service. And I can go ahead and click directly to that to see any information I need to. So again, if this is an intake form, or if this is a client filling it out, I would see all of the different details on this as well. Hopefully all these custom fields will be filled out and there'll be more information here as well for the team to see. But again, that's going to help me link directly out to this deal record to see what I need to see, as well as tell the whole team, hey, we just got a new client on board. So that's probably the best way to use the notifications with the integration. Again, if you really want to send notifications from a certain list, if it's helpful into Slack. However, sometimes it can be very overwhelming. You could try it out, but I'm sure you'll get overwhelmed depending on how much activity you have going on in ClickUp. But that's my favorite use case for the ClickUp and Slack integration in terms of the notifications. So now the last thing that I want to discuss is a really cool automation that we've set up here at ZenPilot that essentially allows me to do the adding a task from Slack into ClickUp a little bit faster and a little bit easier than it was with the actual integration. So we've set this up for a bunch of clients. If you would like this and you want us to set it up for you, please let me know. I'll put a link in the description below where you can actually go get signed up to get this workflow automation built out for you. But essentially what happens here is, instead of me having to use the overall create a task here and then kind of go through all the additional things, and it takes me about 2 to 3 minutes to actually get that set up. If someone asks you a question in Slack, or is wanting you to review something, or is telling you to do something, what I'm able to do is I can come here inside of Slack and I can actually go to my emojis and I can just go and click on this ClickUp emoji just like that. So Maggie asked me a question and I need to review this. I don't have time right now, but I want to make sure I don't forget to do it. What I can do is go ahead and add reaction just like this, use the ClickUp emoji, and then what that does is essentially it's going to take that and automatically create a task for me here inside of ClickUp. So when we go ahead and refresh our screen, this is actually going to go ahead and create a task for me in ClickUp. It's going to put it in a central place just like this. And we'll see Slack follow-up assigned by Jeff Cipher. Channel is in marketing. We have the Slack link. We have the overall message from her. And I can go ahead and, as you'll see, we already have a time estimate on this. It already has a due date. It's assigned to myself because I'm the one that actually clicked the trigger, and everything is good to go. So again, I can go ahead, and this could just be my planning task like I had in the other workflow that I showed you earlier, or I can actually use this, and this is sort of my review task. But again, this is just going to make the due date automatically today. If I need to remap that, I can, but that's going to automatically take all of my sort of Slack comments, Slack messages if I want to. All I need to do is use that emoji. Super easy for me to automatically go ahead. Takes about 5 seconds for me to go click that, send it to ClickUp, and then I have that reminder, I have that task for me inside of ClickUp to make sure that I don't forget to do it. So it's super awesome, super great way to make your team much more productive. It's been great for our team and a lot of our clients that we've helped set this up for. And so lastly, just to summarize, remember the big important piece of this is that your team knows when to use Slack for communication and when to use ClickUp for communication. Make sure that ClickUp becomes your single source of truth in all the communication that has to do with projects, deliverables, both internally and for your clients. Get that into ClickUp so that nothing gets lost. However, the integration is helpful to make sure that you could take Slack comments, Slack messages, and move them into ClickUp as tasks so that nothing slips through the cracks. But go ahead, work around with all of these different sort of pieces and features within this integration, figure out what works for your team, make sure you get everything standardized, and make your team more productive and have more effective communication in the system overall. And there you have it. That's how you integrate ClickUp and Slack to make your team more productive. And if you like this video, you found it helpful, please go and hit the like button below, as well as hit subscribe so that you don't miss our next video release. We're going to continue to deliver content weekly for teams trying to get the most out of ClickUp. And if you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, please leave those in the comment section below as well. And lastly, if you want that ClickUp to Slack emoji automation that I showed in this video, and you want that set up for your workspace so that you could take Slack messages and turn them directly into ClickUp tasks super easily, go to zenpilot.com/Slack ClickUp automation to get signed up. We'd love to set that up for your workspace to help your team be more productive and make sure there's nothing that slips through the cracks. And with that, I'll see you again next time.
Cannot make no more, I can't replace it. Trying hard just not to waste it. It's about time. Yeah, it's about time.